Inductive reasoning. What is it? Where is it in the business world? What are its strengths and limitations? And finally, what are my personal recommendations for using inductive reasoning to support positive business outcomes? Now, if I told you that I was going to drop this pen, what would you think were to happen? Think now. You're correct. It dropped. This is a matter of fact. Gravity. Something that we all know to be true irrefutably. And that is what inductive reasoning does not deal with. Matters of fact. However, matters of logic and reason are exactly what induction deals with. In other words, if I take this pen and I go to write on this piece of paper, will it write or not? Think now. Okay. You're correct. It writes. Very well, in fact. I just bought these Sharpies. Now, if I take it again and I try to write one more time, what do you think will happen? Will it write or not? Think now. Okay, here we go. Barely. Why is that? And how did you come to the determination that this pen would indeed write very well, just like it just did in the previous line? You used your previous experience that I just gave you with this pen to write on the board. However, what you missed was that below the screen, I have two pens. I deceived you, I know. That's my fault. But it was necessary to make a point that inductive reasoning takes finite experiences and you extrapolate them into the future to make a projection about what will happen. So what you did was you said, okay, the pen wrote very well. I swapped the pens, you didn't know it, something that was not a part of your previous experience, and it didn't write as well. With that being said, that is potentially the pitfall of induction. Inductive reasoning exists in many places all over the business world. I'm going to highlight 3 case studies. Number 1. If, say, you are an investment banker and you look at this chart and the chart is going like this, then you might make a projection from this point here that says, okay, I would expect growth to go in that direction. Just like that. Making a projection based on prior experiences. Number 2. If I hire a person represented by this triangle, and their output is, let's say, 3 out of 10. 10 being the best possible output. Then another triangle comes into my shape employment organization. Then I would predict that they would also produce a 3 out of 10. Whether this hypothetical turns out to be true or not does not matter, because based on this experience, I would have dismissed the next triangle to walk in the door. And lastly, if I wanted to create or prove that this is true, that the pink square is true, then I would do research to find the actions or sequences that produce pink square. So, pink square I found is caused by orange square combined with teal square. But my research did not include the limitations of pink square. And in my first experience with pink square, I did not experience that this orange torn piece would have implications in future experiences because of my confirmation bias. Had I done the proper research, I would know that this orange piece partially exists in the input group. Now, this is confirmation bias in management. This is projection from a prior experience in HR, hiring experiences in the business world. And this is a projection that an investment banker would use. Now, the investment banker is limited as well. You see, when we have this chart here, and the chart goes like this, initially the expectation is accurate. However, without this context, and in the future, when they see a similar chart, this is, by the way, context B, and this is, by the way, context A. The context changes, the chart looks the same, or very similar. Now, the limitation here being that if we take this graph, and we see it here, and we take this context and apply it there, we would expect this outcome. But we've changed the context. So generalizing this data and this data into this situation is a limitation that investment bankers might experience. In other words, they should be very careful to get highly specific data about each scenario. For the strengths of inductive reasoning and successful applications as we've seen to date. First, policies. So if we have an employee and they keep running into a situation, we're able to check a policy. So instead of event, then we have to go to the boss, then we have to deliberate, then we can act. Instead of this process, we have an event, then we check policy or standard operating procedure, then we can act. Less friction, less steps, quicker actions creates a faster response to an ever-changing problem. Second, iterations. If we have a product and this product continues to see friction in some fashion, we can use this prior experience to inform an iteration on that product. Likewise, an iteration on a problem, otherwise innovation, can also help solve problems based on past experiences using evidence. This evidence is not to be dismissed, but it's important that the evidence is highly qualified to the situation. One example of iterations based on prior experiences is the iPhone and other phones. They have improved the phone year over year over year based on the consumer's points of friction, iterations. Likewise, projections. From historical data, they take a long sample of data, we can then project things in the future. For example, the weather. Without using prior weather data, we would have a very hard time predicting the future weather. We have come to a point where the current weather accuracies, especially in Middle America, are highly effective. And these are crucial for natural disasters and all kinds of different events that might be implicated. Say, if there's a lot of rain, if there's going to be lightning. This is very important for business decisions. And now for my recommendations for using induction in an effective manner to support positive business outcomes. I have 5 key contingencies here that are useful. Number 1, specific information that is nuanced. Vague information is generalized and misses out on key details that are, in fact, the most important parts of the information towards extrapolating projections and estimations of the future. Number 2, seek contradictions. It's very important that in an effort to create and curate data for events, that we also curate data that proves otherwise what we think, that contradicts what we think. Number 3, remain flexible. Now, in this effort to predict the future, oftentimes I see people are creating a very rigid plan. And we must remember that this is in fact a prediction, that it might not be right. In fact, most of the time they aren't completely right, but that maybe they are 70-80% correct. We can hope that they're 100% correct, but that's a perfect world and we certainly don't live in one. Number 4, have conviction. Now, I know I've just told you to remain flexible, but at the same time, conviction is very important. If you're not convicted, what's the point? If you're not willing to stand behind what you have researched, what's the point? And lastly, have a contingency plan or plans, plural. It might be possible to create more than one contingency plan, and in many cases it will be possible. You could potentially create an infinite amount. The important part is that these contingency plans are of high quality and high probability, or at least relatively important probability. We can analyze whether it would be important to create a contingency plan based on a risk matrix where we can plot the likelihood on the x-axis and the consequence on the y-axis. Then we can determine how dangerous, being high danger or low danger, these situations might be. In any case, thank you for listening to this informational video on inductive reasoning in business environments, and I leave you with these key takeaways.